Good evening, everybody. This is gonna be weird. This is gonna be an unusual show for a couple of different reasons. First out, we're trying out some new tech. Hopefully, the new tech works. Everybody has their fingers crossed. But how was your week? Got some housekeeping stuff that we gotta clear off, and then because I'm not sure that I would really crush a show on my own this week, we're gonna bring in some help, and we're gonna do a little bit of an Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions you've ever wanted to know about the breakdown, then you can throw those questions up in the chat, or you can join us on the Twitter Spaces, and we'll turn the things on and you can ask the questions. 'Twill be delightful, he said. All of that being said, I was up till 5 a.m. last night because I knew I was going to do tonight's show, and there's been some developments, as some of you may well be aware. There's been a few little things that have happened over the last week and a half, and I want to talk about them. And I'm going to try to do my best. See, here's the problem. Here's the issue that I keep bumping up against. It's all so big. It's all so almost impossible to put into words. For anybody who's unfamiliar, last Thursday, not the one that we just did, but the one before that on the 19th, I was served with legal papers from Edmonton businessman. He's the gentleman who brought the Vanch masks into Alberta during the pandemic. He's the gentleman who brought in the Turkish acetaminophen and ibuprofen, which we playfully, with no harm intended, refer to as Tylenot here on the show. And he's the gentleman who hosted multiple MLAs and ministers and allegedly staffers in his skybox in Edmonton. Everything that I said there is true. All of it is confirmed. There's no speculation in any of that. Nonetheless, Mr. Mraiche had me served with a lawsuit for $6 million, which is such a wild thing to say. It's just wild to say that. But the rest of the story is where I struggle. That part's easy because it's ridiculous and not that surprising. Last Sunday, a week ago today, we announced that we were launching a GoFundMe to help pay for the inevitable legal bills. And my expectations were, I thought, optimistic. It turns out that optimistic is not the right adjective. I knew I was going to struggle getting through this first part, which is why we're bringing in a pinch hitter in just a little bit. The original goal for the GoFundMe was set for $10,000. I knew that was not going to cover the entire costs of the process, whatever that process may be. But I figured, okay, well, that'll get me started. And in the last week, I have had to, mostly because there's some of you out there are absolutely wonderful and have been sending DMs and text messages and phone calls saying, you have to raise the goal again. You have to raise the goal again. And so we've raised the goal a few times. And the last time I raised the goal, it was to $70,000, which is an inconceivable amount of money for me, which is probably why the $6 million seems so silly. But we hit that goal because of you people, and your support, and your belief in what we try to do here is. See, this is where I run out of the words part. It's so huge, and it's so generous and beautiful, and there were so many other things that like I said, I was up till 5:00 in the morning last night trying to think about all the different ways that I wanted to come at this. The very, very first thing that I want to say, though, is just to thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Because of your support, we have been able to get to a place where um, the legal fees for the next year at least um, are handled. And there are a lot of people who have stepped forward to help with that. So I want to say just thank you. It's it's huge. I try not to talk about me very much on the show, um, because I think that one of the things that's really important is that people know that when we go to air, we're trying to draw attention to things. We're trying to get people to pay attention to things. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about me and about the why of the show in ways that I haven't before, um, because I think that's uh, something that people deserve to hear. Um, because there's been, let's do it this way. As I effectively interview myself, here's the question I'd like to ask you, Nate. Let's do it this way. I've said many times in the past that one of the reasons why the breakdown started was because after I got my ass kicked in the 2019 election, there were people who said that they really liked the videos that I had produced in that campaign. And there were some people around me who said, keep doing it. So there were some volunteers and we put it together and we did it. One of the very first things that we took a swing at, though, was something that I had encountered during that election. And that was Canada Action, or as we referred to them playfully, Canada Paction. And the reason for that was the overlap that existed between Canada Action and the UCP in the run up to the 2019 election was really quite remarkable. And it was a very, very well branded campaign because who doesn't love Alberta oil and gas in Alberta? What kind of monster? And so it was a very, very difficult nut to crack. But because of some help from some volunteer researchers, and because of the passion of the people involved in the show, we were able to peel back some layers of that onion, and we were able to illustrate that there were some connections, and there were some connections that people should know about because maybe they did get played a little bit. That was the very first. We think people should know these things. They're not being explained well. So what if we tried to explain them well? What if we tried to make them accessible? What if we listened to an elevated experts instead of trying to talk about the things ourselves? That's where the heart and the soul of this show is. And there's a lot of different things that I'm personally very passionate about with the show. I've mentioned before on the show, I grew up in northern rural Alberta till I was like 12, 11 or 12. I don't know. And then I moved to Calgary, and I've spent the last a number of years of my life living in Calgary. And so I see the differences between rural Alberta and urban Alberta, and I see the schism that exists there. And it breaks my heart because I know that there are amazing people who live both rural, both urban. And I don't think that schism needs to exist. And I think that it's a schism that too many of the people who are elevated to higher positions, they take advantage of it. And that's one of the other themes that exists for the breakdown, is trying to say, no, you can't do that. You can't take advantage of people. You can't manipulate people that way. It's not okay. And it was only a matter of time before we got our first legal threat operating in that sandbox. And that very first legal threat actually came up during the Canada Paction series that we did. We were able to point out that it was silly and they went away, and that was the mature, responsible thing of them to do. So I guess props. There have been other legal threats that have been issued over the years. I'm umming a lot. I apologize for that. It's because I'm winging it. But the core of the show has always been, okay, but the people need to know the things. The people who are willing to listen to the show, spend some time with the show, they need to know the things. And we're going to try to make these abstract, hidden pieces of Alberta politics a little bit more accessible. We're going to try to do it in a way that people can understand and get something out of. And that's one of the biggest gifts that I got for Christmas this year was the support that you all have shown. Says to me that we have been able to do that to some degree. I want to address a couple of other pieces before I bring in our guest for the evening. One of those pieces is a lot of people have expressed concerns that this is in some way. I thought I was clear last week, but just in case, there's been some folks that have been concerned that this is in some way going to mark the end of the breakdown. Let me be clear. It is absolutely not. I won't allow it. I won't permit it. That's just the bottom line. And this is where I'm going to talk about me again for a sec. I've talked about the fact that I'm a paramedic before on the show. I feel like when we're discussing issues of healthcare, especially when we're discussing issues that have to do with the state of EMS in the province of Alberta, not only is it incumbent on me to disclose that in order to make it clear that, yeah, I absolutely have a bias. But it's also important for me to disclose that and make it clear that I'm only ever speaking for myself and certainly not any employers so that I can keep my job. But I've learned a lot of things over the years as being a paramedic, and I had the privilege of responding in Calgary through a bizarre series of events. I was embedded with the Calgary Police Service when the first wave of evacuations happened during the floods. It was like a 36-hour day. It was very tiring. I slept on the floor of the Max Bell Arena for like 30 minutes. Long story. Another day. But it taught me about perseverance. It taught me about the importance of serving a bigger thing than yourself. And I also had the privilege of responding to the Fort McMurray wildfires. And I was on a road when the beast turned around, and I was sitting in a vehicle with a fire captain when fire literally started falling out of the sky, huge chunks. They're called firebrands. It's a thing that I learned that day. That's where the term comes from. But there's little fire falling on the sky, falling on our SUV. All of this is to say, I have faced far worse things than this. And I didn't have in those moments the support of the incredible group of people that make up the audience of this show. So, no, the breakdown is absolutely not going anywhere. We have already started mapping out our New Year stuffs. We've already started putting the pieces in place for some of the bigger things that we're going to be chasing down. We have some FOIPs that are pending. Some of them submitted perhaps in the last couple of days. But we have some FOIPs that are pending. We're going to be doing a deep dive on the direction of taxpayer money to far right-wing media. We've got the receipts for that. We've mentioned it in a couple of other episodes, but we're going to really be doing a deep dive on that when we get the rest of the information that we're looking for. We're absolutely going to be talking about the coal situation in the province of Alberta. We're going to be spending a healthy amount of time putting together a series of conversations about the coal situation in the province of Alberta, because as we saw in BC, one of the coal hoppers, I think it's called, I don't know, ignited and the coal was burning as it was being shipped. That's with all the safety precautions in place. And the fundamental question, the fundamental conversation that we need to be having around coal in this province is, are we comfortable assuming those risks, those inevitable risks of accidents when it comes to our water supply? The people that I've been talking to say no. The people who live in Australia who don't have to share the water supply seem to say, yes, we're going to be doing a lot more with that. We're going to continue to do our weekly roundups of Alberta politics, because one thing is very, very clear. There's going to be a whole lot more that is going to be going on in the province of Alberta. There's going to be some more legislative changes that are going to be coming in the province of Alberta. There's a couple other things, though, that I want to address in regards to the lawsuit. I've been thinking a lot about it. And here's the thing. The whole situation, and this is not me trying to make excuses. I want to be really, really clear about that. But the whole situation that the breakdown finds itself in, that I find myself in, and I would argue that the province finds itself in, with all of these issues, with the Turkish acetaminophen and ibuprofen, with the skybox scandal, bracket S bracket, those exist because of a systematic dismantling of the guardrails. Here's the thing, and this is why it blows my mind. I keep going back. The one of the things that I keep going back to over the last little while has been the Jesperson interview that Jesperson did with Danielle Smith, where she was talking about how she wanted to be able to go to the big sports games, and she wanted to be able to not sit with the people that she's been elected to represent, but sit in the owners' boxes, sit in the sky boxes. And the audacity to say, and so I'm thinking about changing the conflict of interest rules, despite the fact that the previous ethics commissioner had said this would be a huge conflict of interest. Despite all of that, Danielle Smith went on a public forum and said on the record, you know what? I want to hang out in the nice places. I think I'm better. She didn't say that part. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I think I'm better than the average Albertan. I want to go hang out with the elites. I think I deserve that. That's the dismantling. That's the problem, because those norms were just cast aside, and it will be a forever disappointment to me that at that moment, Mr. Jesperson didn't say, hey, I think that might be bad. And in fact, he did the opposite. He said, yeah, no, I think you should be able to go hang out with the elites. I think that's expected. That was really disappointing. And I think that's part of the greater theme. There is an entitlement that seems to come with success. And we certainly see that embodied in the Premier of Alberta, because she believes that she's entitled to go to these skyboxes. She believes that she's entitled to take these lavish trips. She believes that she's entitled to go to the inauguration of the President of the United States on the taxpayer's dime for reasons her ministers believe, despite the fact, and again, this is where it's so frustrating for me, despite the fact that the ethics commissioner said this is a conflict of interest. You can change the rules so that it's not a legal conflict of interest in regards to your job, but that does not mean that there is not a higher level of responsibility that you should be held accountable for and accountable to. All of the ministers who went to take advantage of these opportunities believed that they could and believed that they should. And this is part of the problem. I hate to get all Stanley on this. And this is one of the reasons why there's a couple other things that I want to say before we bring in our guest. But in the words of Peter Parker's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you don't recognize that the corollary to that expression is absolute power corrupts absolutely, well, it's not just absolute power. Any power has the potential to corrupt. And if you don't recognize that fact, then you are opening yourself up to corruption. If you don't have safeguards to make sure that you don't fall victim to that power. You're opening yourself up to that kind of corruption. And it's mind-blowing to me that I live in a province right now where the Premier of Alberta has said openly, I'm not just going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to remove the safeguards systematically so that everybody else around me who has access to power can do what they want to do. We saw the recommendation come forward from the UCP committee saying staffers should not be subject to any conflict of interest rules, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Because if you take a look at almost any other crown corporation that exists, any other person who's on the who's getting paid by taxpayers, they have a responsibility to uphold a code of conduct. They have a responsibility to make sure that they are being transparent about conflicts of interests when they arise. They have a responsibility to make sure that they're not exploiting the people that they're serving. And all of the guardrails are being disassembled by this government. The point that I'm trying to make is there could be no accusations. There could be no concerns if Danielle Smith and the UCP simply followed the rules. But they couldn't follow the rules, so they got rid of them. And that's where the problem really, really lies. Because none of this would be an issue if it wasn't for the fact that Danielle Smith, multiple UCP ministers, allegedly a bunch of staffers, said, you know what? Yeah, I do want to go to the luxury hockey game. I've been invited to go to the luxury hockey game. I'm not going to do any kind of due diligence, as we heard from at least one UCP minister. I had no idea who this person was, but he invited me to go watch a hockey game with him in a luxury skybox, so I went. That's not a direct quote. That's a paraphrase, but it's an honest one. It's that kind of entitlement. If we were being represented by people who believed that they should be held accountable for how they choose to wield and access the power that the people of Alberta have allowed them to have, none of this would be an issue. That's just the reality. So, all of that being said, a bunch of people ask questions about the GoFundMe because we started it at $10,000, and I was thinking, well, that should get me a retainer. And now we are at $70,000, which is, as I said earlier, enough to cover the legal things for the foreseeable future. So, despite the insistence from a few folks who I understand absolutely have my best interests and the best interests of the show in mind, we're not going to be raising that goal again. If nothing else, this exercise has taught me, this experience has taught me that all of you are so amazing. And if I or the show find ourselves in the circumstances where, for whatever reason, we need more help, that help will be there. And I want to say thank you so much for that confidence and that safety, because it's a silly lawsuit. I mean, the statement of claim is out there. Anybody who wants to can go through the breakdown social media. You can search all of the posts that they're referring to. You might even see, I'm not saying for sure, but you might even see that some of them have been grossly taken out of context and ignored qualifying statements that came immediately before them. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm confident that at the end of the day, this thing is going to be seen for what it is, which is, in my opinion, purely an attempt to try to intimidate and to silence a voice that has been leveling well-researched, fact-based, as accurate as possible commentary at the people who are in positions of power. And if we can't hold those people accountable, if they can't take criticism, maybe they don't deserve so much to be in those positions. Not saying, just saying. So there's all of that. Here's the plan for the rest of the evening. And before we get to the plan for the rest of the evening, I want to make sure that I plug the show that we're dropping on New Year's Eve. And also, if you didn't catch the episode with Dr. Dwayne Bratt that we did, that we dropped on Christmas Eve, would strongly encourage you to check it out. Because his year in review and what he's looking forward to are definitely things that everybody should be paying attention to. Tuesday, the 31st of December, though, we are dropping an episode with Dr. Lisa Young, who I think is just so much fun. She has the Substack for Alberta politics with the question marks and the exclamation marks, which we plug heavily in that episode. But one of the big questions that I wanted to ask her was, how do progressives, and I don't even like using the term progressives anymore, because I think that the dichotomy has changed in bigger ways. I have lots of people who are on the conservative side of the spectrum that I count as very good friends. I don't agree with them about everything. Lord knows they don't agree with me about everything, but I am still able to have a reasonable conversation with them. We are still able to debate issues, and sometimes we're able to even step out of our little spaces and come to agreements on things that maybe we didn't think we were going to come to agreements on. All of that is to say, I don't think that we can say progressive and conservative anymore. I think that the dichotomy has moved to a place where now the conversation, in many ways, due to the extreme nature of things, needs to be framed in the authoritarian-ish and the non-authoritarian-ish. And I believe, he said cautiously, that the authoritarian-ish are a small but very, very vocal minority who have done a very, very good job at getting themselves into the quarters of power. They've done that by using bad faith arguments. They've done that by using, in my opinion, lies and weaponizing those lies. They play dirty. Sometimes I'm told they maybe even file slap lawsuits. I don't know, but they use these tools and they use these tactics, and these are things that progressives, non-authoritarians, have tended to be reluctant to use. And the question that I wanted to ask Dr. Young, which I do in this episode, which drops on Tuesday, by the way, already up for our Patreon supporters. The question that I ask is, democracy is this fragile thing. There is no democratic state in the world, to my knowledge, that does not have some form of armed forces to protect that fragile thing that is democracy, because people will try to mess with it. And in the best of days, maybe we don't need to pick up the brass knuckles so much. But on the very, very bad days, when we do have authoritarian forces that are making laws to remove human rights, maybe we do need to start picking up some of those tactics, and instead of using them in the service of lies, using them in the service of truth. That is the crux of the whole conversation that I have with Dr. Young. And there's some very, very important points and responses. I'm not going to give it away because I think you should all watch it or listen to it if you're a podcast person. So there's my spiel on that. Again, this is where I'm going to open it up to the floor. The guest host hasn't shown up yet, so I'm gonna creatively vamp for a minute or two, I guess, because that's what we do here. I want to talk about the silver lining that exists. One of the many silver linings that exists about this whole experience. Got a shout out from Lisa B0923. That was kind of cool. My kids thought I was kind of cool for that. My wife definitely thought I was cool for that. So there's that. We got already a couple folks in the queue. I really want this show to be more about, tonight's show to be more about you guys. If there's any questions that you have, if there's anything that you want to say, standard rules apply. No hate speech. I have no tolerance for that. And let's try to keep the discourse respectful and in good faith, because I have no time for bad faith. But we do already have. We might have our guest has just shown up, so I'm going to quickly introduce our guest co-host. I don't know, friend of the show. We'll see what title she wants to use in just a sec here, and then we'll open it up to the public commentary. Ask me the breakdown, whatever, anything. So, and she just turned her camera off. We are a profoundly successful and technical show, but I think we got her back here now. So I'm going to bring in, hopefully, if I can. She's not here yet. I don't understand what's happening. I can hear you.
I'm here.
There we go. Sarah Biggs, welcome back to the breakdown. Thank you for being willing to come on the show. I hope you don't get sued.
No. I always need to come back to calm you down a little bit for a few weeks, Nate. Always.
How you been? What's going on? What's new and exciting?
Retirement's not bad.
Well, this is the thing. Like, for you had you were elbow deep in the politics in Alberta for a good chunk of time, and you took a little bit of a break from that. And what's going on with you now? What are you up to now? I'm getting the finger. I don't know what that means.
Okay. All right, my stupid AirPods are not working. Can you please recap, because everything's breaking on my side?
We are a profoundly proficient show here.
I haven't done this in a while, but
I was just saying that you spent a lot of time being elbow deep in the Alberta politics, and then you kind of took a step back. What are you doing now? What's up now?
I've been quiet for what, a year?
I think it's about that.
I think it's about that. This summer I worked with Jeremy Farkas to defend Glenbow Ranch Provincial Park to, help him strategize to make sure that the dam would not be built there, but that was behind the scenes. I've written a few op-eds and, ruffled a few feathers here and there. But I've been mainly, sorry, we have a new dog. Her name is Penny. Nate knows because we lost our 2 dogs. This past year has been a year of loss. Let's put it that way.
Especially for dogs. Like, here's what the number of people that, and I don't know if it's just everybody's getting old at the exact same time, but the number of people in my limited social circle who have lost dogs in the last year, myself included, has been like, what is going on?
I lost 2 in 6 months.
This is what I'm saying.
Leonard and Walter. Now we have Penny. She's 110 pounds Maremma puppy. She's all white and fluffy. We love her. I took a lot of time just to be with the kids. I'm riding horses. Yes, I take jumps. Yes, I do jump. That's what I've been doing, really. I've been super quiet, but on purpose. I needed, well, I think it's kind of public. I lost my dad back in March. It was very painful. I was one of the caretaker. I was a very sudden diagnosis, so that's why I kind of faded back. And so I was a caretaker for my dad. I was in Montreal for 3 months, and then Sarah came back and she crashed. And Sarah decided that mental health comes first. Playing superhero is not worth it, dudes. It's not worth it. I was like, oh no, I'll be fine. I've seen everything in my life. No, you think you're fine, you're not. So when you think you're fine, you're probably not fine. Just Just
Okay, well,
saying.
that's, like, super foreboding given my whole intro, and, like, I'm feeling pretty good right
No, but
now with
when you're
the
going through something, like that, I didn't listen. I was busy because Maddie's 4 now, and she wants to read 5,000 books. So I spent the last year being with family and watching from afar what is happening. Well, in the country, because I was in Montreal, so it was a total different, kind of.
What was it like to get a break from Alberta? That's the first question that I wanna ask you because, like, I think about the conversation that I had with Doctor Bratt, and, um, I was talking about the Venn diagram of the crises of the day, and it used to be that we would have, like, one crisis at a time in Alberta, um, and then we would have, like, a couple of days and maybe even a couple weeks, and then we would have another crisis in Alberta, and now we have a crisis on every day that ends in Y, and we also are now starting to see these national and international crises. But like before Trump was elected, before Trudeau was very clearly out the door, not in I mean, it isn't
But
official
is he
yet.
on the door though?
Oh my God. How is he not? In what universe? Like,
I thought, I was almost sure that he was going to quit on that day. I was in Ottawa.
I didn't
Was it
think so.
Monday? It was a Monday. 2 weeks ago, I was in Ottawa. I was visiting my mother because apparently you only have one set of parent. And that was happening, and people were texting me right, left, and center, and I had to go live. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And so, remember like 2 years ago when we're talking about echo chambers and bubbles and how toxic and how dangerous they can be. This is the PMO, the Prime Minister's office now in Ottawa, and what is going on with the Prime Minister right now is the perfect example of an echo chamber, a bubble that is dysfunctional to the point where it is, we could argue, making us vulnerable on the international scene.
I'd make that
There's
argument. I would
there's
100% make that
Russia,
argument.
there's the war in Ukraine, there's China. There are some maps that have been released of incidents that were, caused by Russia in the past 2 years. I was looking at that today, and it's getting close to the border. It's getting a little close. Like we have Arctic sovereignty now. The Russians are flirting with the lines a little bit more often. Uh, in the States, it's not ideal. You know, I, I personally, I would have made a different choice. But at the end of the day, PMGT needs to have a walk in the snow. But it's raining right now. Not all, so he's going to need an umbrella still. But at some point, convincing yourself that you're doing a good job and that you're there for the good of the country can bring challenges and detrimental consequences to said country and to said democracy.
And I want to
There.
be clear. I want to take an opportunity here because I think this is really important.
Mhm.
Um, there's been multiple now, I don't know what to call it, social media posts. Let's go with that. Social media posts that have come out of BC because Justin Trudeau is currently there,
Oh, come on.
having no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
He's having a vacation out there, and people are being absolutely horrifying. And I think that it should not be like I have said it before. I will say it again. I am not a Justin Trudeau stan by any stretch of the imagination. Um, I think that it's important to know when, hey, it's probably a good time to chuck that torch to the next person. Um, but nobody deserves the like.
No.
Here's what I want. Here's what I want to say. If it was 12-year-olds behaving that way towards the prime minister, then maybe I could cut them a little bit of slack because they're 12. But when you have grown adults who are shooting videos where they're like, "Hey, there's Justin Trudeau over there. And, oh, I found a picture of blackface on another phone. And hey, there's Justin Trudeau over." Like, you're not even being funny. It's not clever humor. It's not smart humor. This is what I would expect from the entry level of a junior high. And when we have adults who are throwing this kind of stuff around, like, I almost wonder, here's the question that I want to ask you. Do you think that that sort of thing only entrenches him more?
I've assisted to a lot of events over the past year.
That's fair. Well, this is just in the last week.
Yeah. Here's the thing. And Elle on Twitter, I forgot her name. I'm sorry. She's a fellow conservative. We're conservatives, whatever we are now, like doesn't matter really. And she was saying, I don't care really if you hate the guy or not, just shut the fuck up. Like,
This is what I'm saying.
am I gonna make fun of Yagmeet Singh because he's driving just a Maserati? I
It
don't give
wasn't
a
even
shit.
his car.
I don't give a shit what they drive. I'm sorry.
Well, nor do
I
I.
don't care who you're with. As long as you're a decent human being, doing your job, showing up when you need to show up, and managing the country properly, that's fine. We can debate if the country's managed properly or not right now. There's a lot of issues on the healthcare system. A lot of people are like, oh, fuck Trudeau. Well, actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But don't arrest people on vacation. It's like when I went to Mexico, well, a while ago, 2 years ago, some people recognized me at the airport. But you know what? They left me alone because I was on vacation. I looked happy for once. Leave people be and let be. Like, but you know what? High schoolers, they would not even call them names. They're too busy on their phones, not giving a shit and worrying about
I mean,
their
you're not.
Instagram or their TikTok. So
It's just
I have a junior high schooler now, and trust me, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't know who they are. But if you looked at the profile of that lady,
she gets complicated real fast.
it's it fits. I'm just going to say it fits.
On brand. Got a couple people in the chat here.
Mhm.
You don't get to look at the chat because you always get distracted, but I've
Yeah,
said
I
tonight's
said
about
Tony
the
back.
audience as much as I can. So
Okay.
there's a bunch of people who are making some comments about Trudeau. And here's the thing. I don't believe that I want to be very clear. I am not a as much as I'm not a Justin fan, boy howdy am I not a Pierre Polyev fan. Because I think that guy, like when you want to talk about, you go back to the introduction that I did during the show, the start of the show, where I talked about the people who use bad faith, who weaponize mis and disinformation, who lean into the dangerous elements of society because it will serve them well in the short term without any regard for what the long term is going to look like. That guy has built his entire little house of cards kingdom around those tactics. So I don't think for a second, that Mr. Polyev is going to be a good prime minister. I'm very, very concerned about how quickly he's going to roll over and show Donald Trump his very, very soft belly. The other thing that I think about Mr. Polyev is I hope he enjoys his 5 minutes of being prime minister, because the conservatives at the federal level have become such a rage baiting clique. All of it is so bad that if he lasts more than 5 minutes, I mean, it's time to get out. What was it? The head of lettuce, the head of cabbage.
No, 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 he will. So remember, I'm from the Harper era, right? 2004, 2005, 2006, and then 2006, Sarah moved in Alberta a long, long time ago. I remember when he started with his weird glasses and the dark olive suits and the yellow shirts, and it was the fashion back in the day. It was fine. Um, but like we said a long time ago, Pretty Up is like a 20 years project, right? He is the named dynasty for the Conservative Party. I think he's going to last maybe 15 minutes, probably longer. And he has very strong allies within the party right now. Like if I look, Shuf Majumdar has been, pretty loyal, Melissa Lansman and all that. But Pierre has a good caucus discipline. It could be worse, but he manages to keep his caucus on track. Trust me. Do I think would I rather see personally a Jean Charest as, a leader of the Conservative Party or Peter MacKay? Peter MacKay, 100%, 100,000 times, yes. Michael Chung, 100,000% yes. Is he going to roll back everything that we think he might? Nah, because the big chunk of the votership are now ladies in their 40s. And get what? We like affordable childcare. We like to see our parents being able to get the dental care they need. We have, we're talking about affordability crisis. We're talking about all of those issues right now. And yanking those programs out right now would cause a crisis that would be unprecedented because some people that have like three kids at daycare now instead of $700 for the three of them, they're going to be paying $4,000. So do I think he's going to be yanking those programs? Mm-mm. The people around him are a little bit smarter than that. But
Do you think, though, I want to jump in for a quick sec there because I'm curious. Um, do you think that he will yank I'm taking the programs away, or will it be oh wow guys, we just got here, we looked at the books, love Donald so much, but these tariffs that he's doing, they're killing us, we can't afford these things anymore, we got to keep the lights on and other things.
no, you can't. There's an affordability crisis and there's a housing crisis. A lot of people are in situations right now where they are locked at very high mortgage rates still for the next 2 to 3 years. Yank that, and one of the reasons why they're able to afford a mortgage right now is because daycare has become more and more and more affordable. It does have an impact on the balance when they increase the price of food, uh, fuel, whatever charge they decide to charge me because I used my fireplace gas starter. It's probably gonna cost me like $20 tonight because I decided to use it. At the end of the day, is that they're gonna have to look at, do we want a market that's gonna be inundated with foreclosures? And then we're gonna see something like a little bit like a 2009 crisis with very bad, mortgage bonds, or do we want to keep it afloat for now and see what's going to happen? Because if you take that $3,600 a month from those families, it's going to be toll cut-ups for 75% Canadian population right now because our savings are depleted because everything has been so expensive. And we're trying to maintain the lifestyle we're trying to maintain. And, it was Christmas and all that. I don't think he's gonna go there.
Do
But
you think he'll have a choice though? Like we've got Dwayne in the comments here, and he's pointing out a couple of good points. I think where he's
Mhm.
talking about some of these issues, the housing issues. Those are supply chain issues.
Yeah,
The costs of those supplies are not things that the prime minister's office can go. You know what I'm going to do? Lumber. 50% off for everybody. I mean, they could, not for very long,
no,
but those costs, it's the same. Here's I think where I want to take you is Rachel Notley,
yeah.
obviously the opposite end of the political spectrum,
Oh,
but
it's her retirement day tomorrow, by the way.
that's true.
It's her last day
uh,
in office.
Rachel Notley came in as premier of Alberta at a time during economic downturn,
Mhm,
and it didn't matter what she did. The reality of we live in a global market
mhm.
hurt enough people that she took the blame for it. And as much as Pierre Poilievre has his, 3-word slogans, if he's not able to, he might be able to stop the crime because the crime actually isn't even that bad. He's just blowing it out of proportion. So it might be really easy to take a cheap victory lap on that one. But when it comes to build the homes and I don't know, all of the other things, those aren't things that are in the prime minister's control.
No.
So,
But
like,
I would say run the deficit. Run the deficit, keep families where they are at right now would be the best move. But do you know what I would like to personally see? I would like to see Bob Ray push Trudeau on the sign and come in. Good old Rentory daddy is taking care of everything. That's what I would like to see Bob Ray just coming into the liberal realm to just mix the cards a little bit. He's still healthy.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens there because, like, I'm not thrilled with the like I don't follow federal politics that much because my sandbox is Alberta politics. And the landscape that my poorly informed eyes see is not great because we've got we're going to have presumably
no, the outcomes are shit.
Yeah, like Donald Trump is going to get into his inauguration.
No,
Daniel Smith
Elon
will.
Musk is going to be inaugurated.
Yeah,
Then
we'll
him and
get
his Department of Baloney
Doge.
Efficiencies will be bringing a fleet of cyber trucks across the US, and he's going to be feeling like super mighty and powerful, and then they're going to need our minimals, and then they're going to have to do like trade again with us. But no, like I honestly I don't know what's going to happen. But do I think they're going to be axing those programs? Because the ladies that are my age are going to be really angry, and he's going to end up with a whole fucking bunch of bankruptcies on his hands, a bigger affordable housing crisis on his hands, and then it's going to be out of control. Sure, we cannot control international market. We can't. That's 1,000%. But what we can control is the outcome within the country. So do we keep certain programs or keeping family afloat so they can afford housing going for a while? Do we as a government take the hit? And I'm gonna sound like I sound like a socialist right now, but I'm a
I
fiscal
was going to say,
conservative.
for somebody who just self-identified as a conservative, you're
Yeah,
not.
but some people are saying that conservatives are those are populists. Okay, a real conservative would tell you. A lot of us would tell you keep the programs going, run the deficit, because having hundreds of thousands of homes being foreclosed is even worse. Look at Detroit. Everything's going to, we're going to be getting the outcome of cutting off those programs that are keeping Canadians afloat is much, much, much bigger than a lot of other things we could be facing. I
I love
say,
how you said. I love how you said Detroit.
isn't how you say it?
No, it's Detroit.
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 You need to listen to like some Eminem and D12.
I do. Eminem's my favorite.
If Eminem heard you say Detroit and you weren't word bending, I'm sure that he would have
I'm
some.
French. That's
That's fair. Here's a question for you, because
yeah.
this is the idea that I've been percolating around, and there is the episode that we're dropping. As I said, it's already up for the patrons, but we're dropping it on Tuesday. The conversation with Dr. Lisa Young about the way that progressives, and again, like I almost feel like there needs to be a reframing of. It's not progressives versus conservatives. It's authoritarians versus non-authoritarians. Because, when I have Dr. Dwayne Bratt has said there is a definite authoritarian bent going on in Alberta politics. When Lisa Young says the same thing, when Dr. Jared Wesley says the same thing, when all of the political academics are saying, yeah, no, there's something going on here. I feel like we need to listen to that. And when I take a look, like I was saying earlier, I have friends that I consider to be conservatives. I would count you as one of them. And we get along fine. Um, but so I don't think that the dividing factor in Alberta anymore is
Conservatives versus
progressives. I think it's people who want that strong man fallacy or strong woman fallacy of I'm going to come in, I'm just going to take control of everything, and you're going to be okay with it. Um,
what I'm
that's
going to say is this. There is a strong, I need to weigh my words on this. I would say that there is a strong appetite for centralization of power.
yeah, that's like authoritarianism. That's like the definition.
I am being careful. But
Are you trying to tell me I'm going to get sued on another thing?
I could get sued. Um,
But that's what like, and this is the part that blows my mind, is because when we hear the folks who are advocating for the most authoritarian policies,
yeah.
when they speak up against the things and I am not a Marxist, I am not a communist, 100%
Are you a
not those
sex
things.
Marxist?
What's that?
Are you a sex Marxist? Like, the ones they're talking about.
Oh, that's
Hey,
Larry. No,
Larry. Oh,
I'm
Larry.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of
He's
things to
still
Larry,
alive, eh?
but
Listen.
um, I'm I'm not any of those things. But when it comes to it's the dissonance for me is wild, because you have these people who are going, "Oh, Justin Trudeau is a tyrant, and we can't have things happen like
Oh,
communist
oh,
Russia where they centralize the power and everything. And the best way that we're going to do that is we're going to centralize the power." Like I have so many questions about that piece, and it's telling to me. And I know that there were a lot of people who struggled with the episode that we did with Andrea and Chris, but it's telling to me that even conservatives are going, oh yeah, I don't like that. That consolidation of power piece, that's not what I signed up for. um it's telling to me that is the that to me is the defining characteristic of the conversation that we're going to be having in 2025. Do you believe in the centralization and consolidation of power, or don't you? That's where I think the political divide needs to be. Am I wrong?
no.
No,
I'm
look at me go.
so I need to be careful here. Okay. So I'm tired of labels. I'm tired of calling everybody a tyrant, at this, at that, or body shaming a leader, or name it. I see comments from both sides. It's like useless, like that picture of the school that kind of took over a picture of Daniel Smith with some kids. And,
Yeah.
and there was a comment who was like, "Oh, the last thing I wanted to see was Daniel Smith belly." You know what? Who gives a fuck? She probably doesn't have time to work out. Okay,
Well, and
so
the pictures also, like, a couple of points
it's
on that. Body shaming is never cool. Second of
but
all, the
we
picture's like
can't
3 years old.
we need to stop doing this. Like, it's attributing those labels of um authoritarian but dictator, Marxist, hardcore leftist, or using some people's tragedies to pursue a personal agenda. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Don't give him the time of day.
No, but you know what I'm
I
talking
know
about.
exactly what you're talking
Is
about.
when you are taking advantage of weaknesses into the systems, and you are taking advantage of sometimes. I'm getting text messages right now. It's hilarious. Um,
About this?
yeah. So I'm going to say this. If you're not in accordance with what is going on, people need to keep speaking up. If they are tired of being attributed some comments, or, one side or the other, people need to, we were talking about was last week. When was it Friday? I don't know. I'm full of cheese and confused between Christmas and New Year's.
The last week for me, I can't even tell you how unstuck in time I am.
I'm very stuck in time. I just, um, yeah. So, what I'm going to say is this: if you don't agree with it, fight against it. If you're tired of seeing certain individuals or certain, attributing statements or attributing actions or start hitting back, there's a certain category of voters that need to start hitting back if they are not happy with what is happening. Like, I'm going to give an example. Um, well, no, I can't really give an example right now. But let's say something very contentious. Usually the progressives are like, oh no, Chumbaya, it's okay. We'll be fine. We'll hug and we'll keep going. This is not how it works anymore. People need to be a little stronger. They need to be, a little bit more assertive in their positions. I'm not saying insult. I'm not saying insults don't work, people. They really don't. We need to
Yeah.
stop going after fucking like my dad is stronger than yours. Like, we need to stop doing that and we need to start acting like adults and be methodical about the language we are using, the language people are using, the actions people are taking. I think there's got to be a little bit more strategy and from, what I saw from, stepping back and all that. Um, don't call people names. Just don't. Don't. I don't care who it is. Don't call out the fact. Do not insult the person. Call out the issue. Do not insult the person. Yes, you could have been caused a lot of hurt. Everybody's suffering right now. I'm looking at, emergency wait times. It's absolutely terrifying. We're looking back. There's a guy, he died from an aortic aneurysm because, he waited too long in the Quebec hospital room and he died.
That's not what happened. That you're going to get me going on that one because that one pissed me off. That one was horribly
Okay,
framed.
well, I'm going by what I read.
Yeah, no, what
He
happened
waited
was
6 hours, decided to go home. His ECG was normal. He was like, "Oh, I'm tired of waiting," but still, the
he shouldn't have.
standard of wait in Quebec is 24 to 30 hours in an emergency room.
You are not going to find anybody who will say that the state of healthcare is broken any more passionately than me
Yeah,
because,
no, I know we talk
obvious
every day.
bias. But there's two pieces of that particular story that I can't let that go out into the ether without putting the right context on it. The first piece of context is AAAs, or those aortic arch aneurysms or abdominal aortic aneurysms, are some of the hardest things to diagnose, period,
Yeah,
until they're ruptured. And the mortality rate is like 95% when they're ruptured. It's tragic and it's horrible luck, but that's just the reality.
I'll give
Second of
you
all,
another. Can I give you an example?
well, I just want to finish my other point.
Cool.
Second of all, he left.
Yeah,
And so
he
if
discharged himself.
yes, so if the system sucks,
Yeah.
the system sucks. And there was nothing diagnostically relevant that anybody could have done
No,
at that moment
or
while
a
he
CAT
was waiting
scan,
at
but
triage. A contrast CT is only going to happen once you've been admitted into the ER.
no, but
So it sucks, but sometimes these things do happen and they're
it
tragic. And I do not like the fact that tragic situation has
has been
been
played in the media.
the way it's been weaponized. Is like, if you want to talk about the ways that the healthcare system has failed, as you just said, hop on the Alberta Health Services website and you can
Oh,
see
yeah,
what the wait times are right
sorry.
now.
So, okay, I'll give you another example. My mother lives in the national capital region, but on the Quebec side. It is a well-known desert for doctors. There are no family doctors, or very few. Sometimes gonna wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months for an appointment to go see your family GP. What do you think I got my mom for Christmas?
one of those, what was it, Tamagotchis, those little things that you had the pet and you have to feed it on the keychain?
No, I brought Maddie for 5 days. She had to do that anyways. Um, I helped her pay for a family doctor. For a mere sum of $978 a year, it brings you 3 times to the doctor in Quebec, each visit. And that was one of the most affordable clinics. And when my father got diagnosed, so just to show how terrible healthcare is across the province, my father got to the hospital on December 20th. He had a scan that night, just a normal CT. Then he waited in a hallway for a week with a giant brain tumor in his head to be told that there's nothing they can do because the brain tumor is too big. They made him wait for a week when he could have gone home, uncluttered the system, and, free a bed for other patients. It is not just and also let's remember that last year in Quebec, $700 doctors exited the public system to do an entry into the private system, and that the healthcare department in Quebec is $1.5 billion in the hole this year. They are running a massive deficit. So, where the two-speed medicine is extremely prominent in Quebec, it's there, it's everywhere. Like, I was driving in Gatineau, and it's like private clinic, call here, blood test, $50, blah, blah, blah. What happens to the public healthcare system? They're still in shit. It won't. And that's what's frustrating, is that we need to have a hard look at what's happening. And it's not going to get any better. And
But that's like, if I can jump in, that's one of the things that I think people need to start to wrap their heads around
yeah,
is the problems that exist in healthcare. I mean, we've got Scott in the chat here has a really good question. I can't help but notice the wait times in Calgary are significantly longer than the ones in Edmonton. Why is it there's no plans to build a new hospital in Calgary? Well, first of all, I think it very much depends on the day. But second of all, that's not a priority of this government. I mean, Danielle Smith has very, very clearly said that her vision for urgent healthcare in the province of Alberta is going to be privately owned, for profit urgent care centers run by private corporations, not by Alberta Health Services that don't have a profit margin, but by private companies that do have a profit margin, that do have shareholders to answer for. She said that's the model that she wants to roll out across the entire province. So it's the reality of the situation is, the reason why we don't have hospitals is twofold. One, there's no political will, and two, we don't have the staff to massively expand the services in the way that we would need to. I mean, you take a look at the new Calgary Cancer Center. Yes, it's open, and that's great, but almost all of the resources that exist in the Calgary Cancer Center are resources that were redirected
yeah,
from either the Tom Baker Cancer Center and or the Peter Lougheed
yeah,
treatment areas. So it's not that uh, there's this adversarial tone that's been put towards healthcare workers for quite a while,
yeah.
and people don't want to get into healthcare. The That's just the reality. I mean,
I was, I was considering career change. And I called you. I was like, hey, thinking about going back in healthcare. And my husband was like, nope, nope, no, no.
well, the environment has changed so much, and that's something like,
And
again, I've said that I'll to some degree speak a little bit more about my experiences on tonight's show. I'm going to go back to just being the host later,
yeah, I was
but
going to say something, but I forgot. It's
okay.
okay.
The way that healthcare workers are treated now across the spectrum is with a level of distrust and aggression that I don't think, I've been working in healthcare for a few years, let's say, because I don't want to actually do the math because I'll feel old. But the tone and tenor with which healthcare workers are treated, not just while they're on the job, but also while they're not on the job, is remarkable. I had coworkers during the pandemic who were being accosted in parking lots because they had paramedic stickers on the back of their vehicles, and somebody thought that it was acceptable to go up to them and say, "You're part of the grand conspiracy in the WEF," and.
Some people need to find new hobbies. Can we just
Yeah,
agree with that?
100% they do.
Like,
But
I'm
it's
so fucking tired of it. It's sorry.
the value proposition to healthcare workers has gotten worse than it was 10 years ago.
Oh, for
And
sure. COVID broke everything. The pandemic broke everything. It brought even more distress because put 3-4 years of pandemic and Facebook, and what do you get? You get a shit show. That's what you get. But we were talking about resources, and so I needed a brain scan because it's a thing I need to watch now, and I suffer migraines, and my father died of the most aggressive form of cancer in 9 weeks. Do you know when my MRI has been scheduled for? I'll let you have a guess.
this is through the public system.
Mm-hmm.
I will say 2027.
No. April 16, 2026.
I was close.
Yeah. But then I called a provider of private MRIs, and they were like, "Oh yeah, can I come tomorrow morning?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." You got to pay $675 though, but you're gonna get your result in 3 days. But I cannot. We have the resources to do it. We do. We have the money. We do. We. I don't even know how to express it. Like, the pandemic broke everything, and people need to find new hobbies. By the way, I'm tired of hearing like, "Oh, you got vaccinated." No, dude, it's 5 years ago. Get over yourself. Find a new hobby. I don't know. Go crochet hats for tiny babies at PICU. I don't know. People need to direct their energies to somewhere else. But we have the money, and we know that we have the money to fix it. It takes. So we can agree or not on the premier's, plan for healthcare. Her plan is not my preferred, you know, avenue. Am I glad that they signed with doctors? Yeah, doctors seems to be okay with that. Hopefully, it's going to stabilize the system tiny little bit. But when you look at ambulances and nurses, and some individual have graduated from nursing programs like in April or in Maine, and is still not hired. Um, that's a huge program. That's a huge problem for a system, and has been saying that we need more healthcare workers. I have questions. I have a lot of questions. And middle management is back on full on. It has not been eliminated. I'm sorry, my conservative friends, but it has not been.
Oh, it's been, if anything, it's been increased by orders of magnitude. I mean, the fact that Daniel
Yeah.
Smith broke the healthcare system up into 4 separate pillars and has created all of this duplicate administration, that is the exact opposite of the conservative ethos. I mean, first of all, the whole "there's too many managers in HS," that's a myth. It's a misnomer. That's been proven wrong many times. It's just a convenient line to make people angry with. But even with the doctors thing, like, I agree, and I said this last week, I agree that it's a good thing that Danielle Smith and the UCP finally got a new model for compensation for primary care physicians. That is a good thing. I have a really hard time going, great job, when y'all are the ones that broke it. It's like they the UCP went to war with the doctors. The UCP did all of these things. Okay,
I'm going
good. They
to
got
say this. It's not all of Daniel Smith. Okay. It's not all of Premier Smith's demise, what is going on right now in the healthcare system. It has started when the UCP came into power. It was a long time coming. Then she made the decision and it's destabilized the healthcare system even more. But was the healthcare system in a very bad spot when she took over and she decided to fix it in 9 days? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Is it worse now? Yeah, it is. But was it bad when she took over? 100%. So while I can agree with a lot of people in the sentiment, and I'm not protecting or defending Premier Smith right now. All I'm saying is that we've been dealing with shitty healthcare administrators for a very long time
well, and the system
under the
has
conservative realm.
yes,
And
and
for some
the system
reason,
has
we can't get it. For some reason, conservatives cannot handle healthcare properly.
well, it's because they want to make money.
Yeah. Well, we like money.
It's true. I want to open it up again for
Yeah.
anybody who wants to ask any
Sorry.
questions, and I want to quickly address something that came up in the chat there, because we had one commenter who was saying some very strong things about Canada, and the colonial experiment is dead. Here's the problem that I have with that. And I'm just going to address that while I wait to see if anybody wants to tap in with any questions. Jim does have one. I'm going to ask you in a second, Sarah. We got to where we are as a country with the history that we have. No matter what we do, the reality is that is our history. And there's no amount of, well, we rebooted it, so now I guess the First Nations folks are all over all of the generational trauma that Canada as an entity inflicted on them. That's not how it works. So I think it's I have a practical problem with people who do the Wexit thing, because, and I've used this line many times on the shows, but the reality is that all of the treaties that cover every square inch of Alberta predate the formation of the province. So in order to get any part of Alberta out of Canada, you'd have to get all of the signatories to those treaties to trust the white folks this time. And I just don't see that happening for a long list of good
It's
reasons.
so complicated. How
Um,
do you remember how we called it 2 years ago when that thing came out? The wet paper tiger.
right here.
Yeah.
It's not wet though, but it's the paper tiger for sure. And the other piece of it is that I think is critically important in regards to the conversation about the future of Canada. It all depends on how you choose to define
Mhm.
what Canada is. I look at the ideals that Canada aspires to on our best days, the ideals of inclusion, the ideas of being a beacon to the rest of the world for peaceful resolution to things, the ideals of not being horrible to other countries, and just getting along, man. Those ideals, if those are the ideas, justice, the charter, all of those things, if those are ideals that we're supporting, then those are the ideals that we're supporting. And it's fascinating to me that the vast majority of people who talk about why they want to leave Canada, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but it's not about ideals. It's not about justice. It's not about the charter. It's about, I want to make more money. I want to stick it
Yeah.
to the other people. It's
But if
grievance politics, and it's lazy.
yeah, but if you talk to Americans, again, when we were in Mexico, my husband, the other dudes, they were talking about, oh yeah, you're in Canada, but you're paying a shit ton of tax. And my husband was like, well, what's your What's your tax rate? 35%. My husband, well, he was like, well, I'm not too far off and I get health care. And the guy was like, but they can't afford health care. So it's that false illusion of we're going to be paying less taxes, whatever. Like, there's two things that are imminent in life: death and tax. You can't get out of it, you can't get away from it, and it will go on forever. But that false idea that we're going to have more in our pocket because maybe our purchasing power would be slightly a little better, maybe. We would be paying maybe a gallon of disgusting American milk $4 instead of 5.50, and very bad butter for 2.50, and dozen of eggs that are not even like very, very pale yellow for $1.25. But that false idea of, oh, everything is so much better in the States. When we go down there, we like it because it's new. We like it because it's not our everyday life. We like it because we're not facing the struggles that they are facing every day. They like it. We like it because we're not dealing with 1,200 school shootings a year. We like it because when we go there, we're in a good mood. We're spending money, we can afford it, and we're in the sun. And, we're partying hard with Mickey Mouse. We are not living the daily struggles of someone is living like in the Appalachians, or somebody is living like in Vegas that needs 4 jobs to make it work with no life insurance, no health insurance, and God forbid if you get injured. And now they're talking about yanking old age security and whatnot. It's like, what are you guys doing? Are you fucking crack? Like, everything that America has built on, all of the principles of America have been built on, are just being destroyed one after the other right now. And who do we have on top of all that? An illegal immigrant just trying to push talking points. So, if you want to move to the States and you need a GoFundMe, let me know. I'll start one up for you, but don't fuck up my country because, you want to drink disgusting American milk.
There we go. I want to open it up again to anybody who has any questions.
Yeah.
Nobody does. I thought
What? Come on,
I
guys.
know. I for sure thought
Who's
that
winning the Super Bowl?
that's baseball, right?
Good God.
I don't sports. I never have sports. It's just not my jam.
Most. But, I'm hoping healthcare is going to get better. And it's like my mom was joking with Maddie when we were back home. She was looking at Maddie and she was like, Maddie, don't get hurt. We don't have any doctors or hospitals here.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, go, shoot.
We got a couple people in here. So I'm going to bring in
angry people.
Tammy first. I don't know. We'll find out. Tammy's not normally. Tammy's normally quite
I like Tammy.
Hello.
Hello.
So, hi. So I have to ask, Sarah, did you buy the pony? Are you enjoying the pony?
I have not buy the horse yet.
Okay.
I had a conversation with my husband. We're gonna wait a few months. I'm sure he's
okay. That's fair. It's a good thing to wait and make sure because they are expensive species.
My mental health is so much better when I'm around horses. Like, I come back, like, I've been much happier. No, I'm just gonna wait probably in the spring.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
But the horse is still in the plans. It has been agreed upon.
Good. Good.
It's just a matter of when, because I still have direct payments.
Yeah. See, my daughter, my eldest daughter has horses, and she's my daughter from my first marriage.
Yeah.
And she had issues with her family, not going to get into it. But she basically came to me and said, Mom, I can't live with my other grandparent. We moved all my horses to our farm. And I'm like, well, there's not really. I'll redo the mobile home. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I just need a new place to live with my horses. And I went, okay, well, if you're willing to do the work, yes, go. Because she literally...
You know what, the way I'm seeing it right now, I'm probably semi-retired for life.
Yeah. And
we'll see.
If you can afford it, horses are awesome.
We'll see if I can afford it, but I've been looking into insurance right now.
Yeah. I never worried about insurance with my horses, but I was never doing anything exceptionally, risky with my ponies.
Oh, I jump. I do dumb shit. It's okay. I'm also 42 years old.
Yeah. I was 50 something when I had mine before my stroke. So, yeah. So no, I had to ask because we had chatted and I'm like, gotta know, did she get the ponies?
Not yet.
It's a need to know. So, other than that, I don't know. It's Alberta. I'm hoping it's going to be a better year. And the interesting thing for me federally is I'm not expecting much of it. What you said about you don't think that Polyev is going to do all those things makes me feel a lot better. I just hope that the dental plan, that we get it rolled out to non-elderly and non-kids, because it's my youngest who has issues galore, and she needs better dental than what. See, this is the one thing that drives me nuts. Danielle Smith claims, oh yeah, we've got great dental for people that aren't working, like if you're on one of our, and it's such a lie. Because my daughter had to go on to the you can't social services, but you can't work because you have a medical issue right now, but it's before you get to AISH. And she needed dental work, and the only dental work that they could get done of the dental work she needed done was a couple of fillings. She's got a couple of root canals that need to be done because her entire mouth was screwed up as a kid, and big complicated story, but she needs these things done, and they won't do them on the dental insurance that the Alberta government provides. So
you're going to love one of the things that we're working on for the new year, Tammy, because we've been trying to figure out for some time now why it is that Adriana LaGrange stood up in front of the Senate and said, well, if you guys roll out this thing, then there's going to be 240,000 Albertans who lose their coverage. We have the answer to that, and we're going to be bringing that in the new year too. So it's not only is it dumber than you might think, but it's also not great.
So I know I saw don't look at the comments, and even my husband told me that earlier. Did somebody ask if Gretzky was going to be PM? Absolutely fucking not. The dude's living on the coast. He's 75 years old. He doesn't care. Okay? No. That's it.
All right. Anything else you want to throw into the mix there, Tammy?
Nope. Have a great new year. Everyone have fun. Don't get too drunk, but
I don't drink.
Have fun.
Yeah, I gave that up years ago, but thank you very much.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Alrighty. We're going to bring in Katie to see what questions that she maybe has, if she unmutes her microphone. And if she doesn't, we'll bring in Ziad.
Sorry.
That's all good. How's it going?
It's going okay. How about you, Nate?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Great. It's good to hear from you, Sarah.
Thanks. It's good to be back.
And sympathies with your parent. I'm so sorry about that. It's hard.
It is.
Yes.
It takes a good year.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've
It's a year.
lost my own mom, and there seems to be quite a few. Maybe it's my age, I guess. There seems to be a lot of my friends and acquaintances that have gone through the same, and it's difficult.
Yeah, but you know what sucks though? Like so grief is weird. Grief is a thing that's going to be like a little bitch and come to punch you back in the ovaries once in a while. And
Exactly.
the other day, I got a phone call. And they were like, "Hey, Sarah, did your dad change his phone number because we were trying to get a hold of him?" And I was like,
Oh, that's the
"Fuck!"
worst.
And then I remembered that they were in Europe, in Spain, when my dad passed. So I couldn't get a hold of them. And then I forgot because zombie for 6 months. And then I was like, "Well, he's kind of dead." And then
Oh,
and
that's the
then
worst. It really is.
And then they were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah," because my father wouldn't let us tell anyone that he was sick. And the family was held very, very close. Even his best friends of 45 years, I didn't see him before he passed. No one saw him. He kept for himself. He really, kind of secluded himself. I couldn't even see him as often as what I would have wished for. Um, but it's a bitch. But can I say something that has improved in Alberta though? One thing that has
Yes.
improved: mental health supports. Some programs, they have been improved quite a bit. I've had access to a grief program in a month and a half, and one of my children needed support, and they were in the system within 24 hours. So that was fantastic. So we were very, very lucky on that side. I'm just saying. I didn't pay anyone extra. I didn't do anything. But yeah, thanks. But it takes a year.
Good.
Like we received this furniture last 2 weeks ago because I wanted to keep some stuff, so I'm kind of rearranging the house. But it's the last bit of the first, like it's the first Christmas without him, the first New Year's,
A
and then
lot of firsts.
on March 6th, it's gonna be the first anniversary, and then it's like, but it's better, but it's a bitch.
It's time. You know what? The thing that surprised me the most was losing a last parent, and that feeling that I never thought I'd experience was feeling like an orphan at my age. But maybe that's because there's no home base. I don't know.
I can tell you that by losing my dad, I lost half of my family. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. At a certain age, you choose who your family with. Okay, we're depressing people here.
Okay.
We need to move on.
I
We
had
can talk offline
I
here.
actually had a question for yourself and Nate, a challenging question. How would you discuss, or what advice would you give to Albertans who are trying to fight an avalanche of lies daily? How do people stand up against that?
I'll let you go first, Sarah.
I mean, it's a daily thing. Daily.
So one thing that I've done, because I was so elbows deep into Alberta politics, right? It was a 24/7 thing. Now I go get the information that I need, and Nate, I don't think I can answer that because I'm so fucking checked out. I'm not that I'm checked out, but I keep my head down and I keep doing what I'm doing every day, and I support my kiddos, and I be a good
And
neighbor, pay my
you're not
taxes,
there.
and I keep moving forward. And I'm trying to, the noise eventually, it's just that right now, unfortunately, there's not much we can do. There's things people can do,
Oh,
but there's not, you can't show up with pitchforks. It's not going to work. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's that
I just think there has to be something
Right
that
now,
can
for
be
me,
done.
I'm more of a wait and see pattern. I'm more in the holding pattern, but that's probably because I decided to remove myself. Nate, what would
You decided to be that.
Here's what I'll say. I think there's a couple of different things. One of them is, uh, I have my little arsenal of the big issues that I think that everybody can agree on. And so if I'm having a conversation with somebody about the politics stuffs outside of the show, then I'll go to, well, hey, do you remember this? Or hey, do you remember that? And I find that if you key into somebody's memory a little bit about what's the thing that happened, then they're able to go, yeah, no, I do remember hearing something about that. What was that? What was the deal with that? And then if you're comfortable with the information that exists there, then being able to say, well, this is what I know. These are what my sources are. That kind of thing, I think, is very effective. But the other thing that I think is really important, and I've seen this have some impact again outside of the show, uh, is being willing to have the conversations. And I know that's a mantra that I repeat a lot. But I think that the willingness to say, hey, here, somebody says, I hate the thing right now. I hate the healthcare system. Well, do you know why the healthcare system is this bad? You want to talk about some of the reasons? Because I have some ideas. I've read some things that I think is critically important. I think one of the other things that is also critically important is considering the source to some degree and encouraging people to consider the source. If somebody is going to say, I don't believe the CBC because they're the Trudeau funded, I mean, it's false. It is.
propaganda bullshit.
Yeah, it's absolutely false. It's a totally arm's length organization. Nobody in government has any sort of editorial control over the CBC, so that's garbage. But if you're somebody who says, I think we should defund the CBC, let's talk about the Alberta update. Let's talk about your province, your premier, because if you're feeling that government should not have direct influence over media, your tax dollars go directly to pay for the Alberta update every 2 weeks, every week when the Ledge is in session. Your tax dollars go to ensure that Danielle Smith gets the Your Province, Your Premier show, same roughly schedule. So if we're going to say anybody who is allowing any sort of taxpayer dollars to have any sort of influence on media production is bad, then the next question has to be, okay, well, how do you feel about these things?
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Sorry. What I've been trying to do also is not solely focusing on the bad. I'm trying to find the tiny little nugget of good that does happen once in a while. It's hard. It's not easy.
It's
But
not.
there are some things good that are still happening.
I don't think it's hard, Sarah. I'm going to challenge you on that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I am the direct recipient of a whole lot of good over the last week.
Yes.
I think that one of the challenges that exists is we do tend to focus a lot on the negative. There's a lot of negative, but I think it's also important to recognize that.
I was talking about the government level.
No, I
Nate.
know, I know that, but
Yeah.
that's not where you're going to find your victories.
No, no
Exactly.
victories, but some.
I'm not saying there isn't good out there. There's good out there.
Yeah.
There's good everywhere you look if you're looking for it. There is not good in this government.
What I'm trying to say is that sometimes good things do happen. Do I agree with the majority of what this government does? No, I do not. It's just, it is what it is. Do I agree with certain programs that they have developed for some rural, some rural programs for medicine and all that? Yes, I do. I do agree to that. Sometimes there is, when I was talking to my grief therapist, She was like, it's really good because we managed to move the wait list from a year and a half down to a month and a half, 2 months because of the money that has been injected. You know what? I'm glad that more people are getting access faster to, because grief therapy should be mandatory for everybody. I'm just saying. But there are good, like Nate, it's just like Ativan antidepressants. It should be free. But like Nate, what Nate is going through right now, I can't comment on it because, you know, but what I've seen.
You don't want to be sued.
But I'm going to say this. There's been quite a few tragic things that have been happening in our little ecosystem in the past 2 weeks. And people have been rallying. People have been doing what they can. And people have been extremely supportive. There are two big things that have happened for me and my little ecosystem. Nate was one, and another tragedy that happened. But we're still good people. At the end of the day, I don't care what the fuck you think. If you still help your neighbor and you're going to be bringing food and you're going to be, you're going to be supportive, that what makes you an Albertan is by your actions. If you think that walking around and making fun of people because they got vaccinated and tried to blame all the fucking cancers in the world on the jab and, stuffing your brain with misinformations all day long, that's a personal choice. You need a new hobby. They're looking for volunteers at the food bank. But what we've seen, and it's not just a holiday spirit bullshit. Everybody's broke. That's what it is. Everybody's broke. Everything costs so much money, but everybody's able to put a tiny little bit on the side and, helping Nate or helping that family to cover some cost, or everybody's there for each other still as a community. And I think that that's something that we're never, no one will ever be able to take away from us, is that community sense of it. Is, there's good news. We see neighbors helping each other and we see everything. And, it's how you treat people that makes you a good person. That's what makes us Albertans. Not who you support at the end of the day at the ballot box. It's how you, well, it does impact, but
it has a big impact. But I hear you.
But who you are as a person on a day-to-day basis, I think has a bigger impact sometimes.
I mean, I would just go back to, because I know your question was, how do you deal with all of the lies?
How do you deal, Nate, with a premier that has her little UCP meetings all summer long and divulges policy, and like, how do you deal with a government like that?
You can't.
Okay.
You can't. Yeah. And this is why I've been trying to highlight the whole piece around good faith conversations versus bad faith conversations for the last couple of months. Because in order to deal with someone, there has to be some degree of good faith that exists in that conversation. If I'm going to have a conversation with you, then I have to be able to believe that you're coming into that conversation from a place where you want to say your things, but you also want to hear my things. Otherwise, we're just talking and making noise. And for people who are interested in having good faith conversations, I think that's where you can absolutely move the needle on a variety of different subjects. The problem is the UCP under Danielle Smith have made it clear they have their agendas, they have their action items, and absolutely nothing is going to change them, period. And I go back to the trans policies as a perfect example of that. Danielle Smith announced what she wanted her policies to be. Literally every expert body came out and said, this is a horrible idea. You're going to hurt people. Don't do this. And she said, I'm still going to do it. And so that to me is a clear example of bad faith. So I don't believe that you can deal with the UCP in its current incarnation under its current leadership in good faith. I don't think that it's possible, and I don't think that that's where people should be putting their energy into. And this is why I know that I've plugged the conversation with Dr. Young a couple of times, but this is why I think that conversation is so important, because I think that there are areas where progressives / non-authoritarians, whatever we want to call it, where there needs to be a recognition that, oh, okay, you're not willing to do this in good faith. Time for the metaphorical brass knuckles then. Because again, as I go back,
That's what I'm looking for.
yeah, because again, like what I said at the very beginning of the program, the reality is that there are some people on the right who are willing to weaponize lies. And I do believe that one can righteously, to use a weird word for me, weaponize the truth. And I think that that's something that people need to do more of. And I think that in the conversation that we're dropping on Tuesday, Dr. Young does a very good job of highlighting some of the inherent risks that anybody who's stepping into that arena needs to be aware of. But I go back to in World War I, there were Canadians who believed that they had to fight to protect society. They had to fight to protect the democracy. They had to fight to protect the crown, all of these things. And when they were on the front, Canadians were not known for saying please. Canadian soldiers were some of the most feared, period. They were recognized as being some of the most unforgiving. And to me, that is sometimes required in the protection of democracy. And especially when somebody who's trying to tear it down and centralize power is willing to engage in bad faith arguments, they're willing to engage in manipulation, they're willing to engage in propaganda. Like it blows my mind. I have resisted this rhetoric since the start of the show, but we have a government that is producing their own media and trying to get it in front of as many people as possible. They are using repetition and lies. That is the definition of propaganda, period. We have a government that is centralizing power across the board. That is the definition of authoritarianism, period. It's not just me saying that, some fool, I mean, definitely a fool, but it's not just me saying that and screaming it out into the ether. This is the opinion of experts who have spent their life studying this stuff. So at a certain point, it's time to, in the most responsible and, again, metaphorical way, I'm not in any way trying to encourage or endorse any kind of violence, but it's time to pick up the metaphorical brass knuckles, because, and this is where, like,
Yes.
I'm trying to come at this obliquely because I don't want to do anything that's not mine to do. I can't think of the last time that somebody on the left was the subject of untruths, demonstrable untruths, and they responded with, "Oh, I'm going to sue your ass into oblivion." I can't think of
There
the
you
last
go.
time that I saw that. Juxtapose that with, there's no shortage of examples. I mean, Jordan Peterson, for example, he said things that were out of line with his professional college in Ontario, but in Alberta, we have Danielle Smith and Mickey Amory standing up and making an announcement about how they're going to be looking at professional colleges because of how Jordan Peterson was treated in another province by a body that Alberta has no control over. So it's, if that's the game that we're playing,
that is the game we're playing.
that's what I'm saying. If we're going to go down the lawfare route, then progressives, non-authoritarians need to recognize that when somebody's out there doing those things, that progressives and non-authoritarians need to be willing to get in the ring with that. And if somebody is saying things that are demonstrably false, that are slanderous or libelous, or, then progressives need to be willing to say, all right, here we go. You guys have set the rules of engagement here. And that's just one example. I think there's many other examples that people can look at and turn to for how do we navigate this going forward. But we are where we are. And I think that's what I have to say about that.
That was great, Nate. Thank you.
Well, I hope I answered your question a little bit.
You did, and I will be looking forward to your next show.
It's a good one. It
not
really
that
is.
I'm not enjoying this one,
Well,
but I will be looking forward to your next show.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in Ziad, and then we've got Cassandra. I'm going to apparently cough up a lung. Ziad, how are you doing, sir?
Fine, thanks, Nate. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
And welcome back, Sarah. I'm glad you took the time you needed to rest, relax, and be with family.
Thanks. Lots of naps. Lots.
Thanks. I'd like to make some very limited remarks about a certain lawsuit, largely disclaimers protecting the show and its host. So if you don't mind, I'll do that.
You go right ahead, sir.
It's very odd for me to be in a position where my tweets are being accused of defamatory, false, and malicious, but someone else is being sued for publishing or republishing them. It's intimidating for me and perhaps any other guest or caller to this show to worry anything they could say could cause you liability. To me, that just seems patently unfair. I've come to like you and respect you over the years and your contributions to Alberta politics, especially with this show. And I know personally the due diligence and the care that you put into it and in the opinions that you express on this show. I just wanted to make a reminder that I tweet only for myself. I don't speak for the Breakdown or its host. I'm not part of the Breakdown team, unfortunately. If I were to be added as a defendant in the lawsuit, it would be very counterproductive for the plaintiffs, because not only do I have my public record of tweets that I would use as defense, but I also have information that is possible to publish publicly. It's, for example, follow-up responses that other healthcare workers have made about products from a certain importer that would be eligible to make public and could be done separately from a lawsuit where there's no implied privilege or implied undertaking to protect them from public release. So I don't know where you're at in your lawsuit defense. I'm not part of it. I certainly support you, support funding you, and I'm doing my best to recommend good counsel to you. But where I will be able to defend you, where my tweets are being used to accrue liability to you, I'd be happy to provide the evidence that I'm talking about or any other evidence to defend you and to perhaps show these plaintiffs that their application is somewhat counterproductive. Okay, that's all I had to say.
Well, thank you for that, Ziad. I think I understand what you were trying to say there. I just want to say, I mean, you're right. I take responsibility. I have always said that I'm the executive producer and I'm the editorial control for the show, and I take responsibility for whatever the show does on any of the ways that we interact with the public. The only thing that I would say is it makes me sad to hear that anyone would feel intimidated about speaking out about facts. So I hope that whatever. And I hope my hope is that it will be made clear that you can't just do that sort of thing. You can't just file lawsuits because you didn't like what somebody said, even though it was true. That's one of the reasons why I'm as committed as I am to this. So that's what I'll say to that. And I obviously the Breakdown has retweeted your content on more than one occasion. I think it's valuable. I think it contributes to an important part of the provincial conversation. So I hope that you continue doing it. And I hope that intimidation that you're feeling is fleeting.
I'm not intimidated about the justification for my remarks, so that they're responsible communication in the public interest. I just don't like that someone with a large amount of resources, which could be said to be coming from a contract that the Alberta government sole source to it, with $49 million of unearned revenue liability that it still hasn't shown any evidence of earning, is able to apply what appears to be a slap lawsuit to, regardless of the veracity of the person's statements, is going to run up their legal bill. So it's that's sort of the intimidation I feel is like you said, the lawfare, and the fact that it could be that our provincial government is funding the lawfare.
I feel you. Is what I'll say to that.
There was wants to say more, but yeah, I just wanted to say I support you in every way, and I look forward to supporting you with evidence where and as needed.
I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that the long-term consequences of these sorts of actions is considered deeply, is what I'll say to that. But I'm also prepared to take it as far as need be. But thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, we got Cassandra waiting in the queue. And then I think that's all of our speakers, and we're coming up to the 2-hour mark as well. So I'll yeah, I know, right? So I'll give some space for Cassandra if she wants to weigh in, and then I'll let.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. How's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm more relaxed than I have been. I've been on my own little hiatus because some of it's family stuff, but some of it is like, I guess I do want to make a couple comments. I think my first comment is that, to Katie is like, I've had to take a break from places like Twitter and different places, and pull back from some of even my other activism, and because it was just getting too much. The level of toxicity. I've had things aimed at me over the last couple years. I've even had personal attacks, but what the level of toxicity the last 6 to 8 months has been absolutely insane, and even when it's not directed at me, I've personally found it too much to even counteract. So I haven't been around much, and that's my story. As far as this, the other comment I would like to make in regards to this, I think it's absolute cowardice for somebody with the kind of resources that this plaintiff has to use them to bully somebody that is just trying to speak truth to power. And I think it says a lot about what kind of maybe liability he thinks he might have to the Alberta taxpayer for his little deal with the Alberta government, that he feels that he wants to silence you, because obviously he's feeling some heat. And I think that there's something for us all to think about, and I think I might even look into it, because I think there's a number of things. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I'm thinking maybe we should talk to one about, like, this. There's a couple deals, these sole source contracts. These were made in bad faith, and it's literally the money of the Alberta taxpayer. And I think that as Alberta taxpayers, I think we have a right to sue him for that. That's my personal opinion. That's what I'm feeling. That's my personal stance on all of this. And I've thought about it since I've heard it, because, I can't think of any other reason for him to want to silence you and bully this podcast, other than that he feels that he does have something to hide, and that we could maybe.
I would Cassandra,
I don't know that, but I don't know
yes,
that, as I said, but
I was just going to say,
yeah.
if we don't know, let's just not say, because this is extremely
Well,
contentious right now. And I understand where you
okay.
come from, but for this Nate's sake right now, I think that making a little bit more
Well,
allegations
this
on
is
top
my
of it,
personal opinion. That's why I said that.
yes,
It's my personal opinion. It's not. This isn't about like I'm just a listener, and
oh, no,
this
for
is
sure.
my personal opinion. And if he wants to come after me, have at her. I have nothing for him to go after. Um, you know, like seriously,
It's
I'm
just I
just
just
saying
don't want
that
to pile on more Nate on more than
and
he's
that's why I said I don't know. I don't know. I'm surmising. I don't know why somebody would do this. You know what I mean? Unless, I can only think of a few reasons. Let's just put it that way. And I think that it's, you know, I think this person has done us wrong, and that's my feeling on it. But and again, it is my personal opinion and my personal feeling about it. You know, as yeah.
Well, as I opened up the show,
Yeah.
Cassandra, to be clear, I think one of the it sounds like you're falling in a dryer.
I'm in my car.
Oh, okay. I think one of the big lessons that people in the corridors of power should take out of this is when you remove the guardrails that exist to prevent abuses of power, it's inevitable that these sorts of situations will arise. So leave the
Yeah.
guardrails up.
I agree with you. I think we do need guardrails, and I think it's rather sad. You know, I'm just like it hurts me. That somebody would do this. Oh, here comes my roommate. Sorry, I was but yeah, I just wanted to say that, and like I said, if that individual feels that they don't like what I had to say, they can come after me, and good luck with that because I got nothing. So have fun. Um, because I won't stop speaking truth to power either. I might take a quiet walk away sometimes, but you know, I think there's a lesson in that we shouldn't be intimidated by these kinds of things, and that we need to call people out, not just but all of us need to call people out when they're making, um, when they're doing us wrong and doing society wrong. We all need to stand up and because together we're stronger. And yeah, I just don't think that that's fair.
I don't disagree with you. The silver lining that I would draw everybody's attention to is there's a whole lot of people who have said that they won't let it stand. And that has put me in a position where I'm now in a position to not let it stand.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's good. And I think it's good. And it warms my heart to see the level of support that you're getting. Um, I think it says a lot about, it says a lot about our province and the people that actually live in it. Like, we have a government that ignores basically whatever the majority of people of Albertans want. They're like, oh yeah, no, we're going to do the opposite. And I honestly feel that, you know, the level of support that you're getting right now, I think that shows just what kind of people this province is really made of.
Yeah.
I know it's bleak when we look on Twitter or we look on social media. It can seem bleak because we're inundated with misinformation and toxicity and bullying. But I think, the level of support you're getting says a lot about who actually lives in this province and what we actually value.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I've been going back to consistently the line in the Star Wars movie that everybody hated. I enjoyed it, and that line is simply good people will fight if we ask them to.
Absolutely. And you know what? I could say so much more. It's been a while since I've been around, but you know what? I love you guys. And yeah, just keep it going. And I'm so glad that we have a place that we can have these conversations.
Me too.
Thank
you so
you.
much. All right. I think that is the, I'm just going to double check and make sure that's the list that we got to everybody who wanted to do the things. And I don't see any questions pending in the chat. So I think that this was a good use of 2 hours and change. Sarah Biggs, any other thoughts that you want to add before we call it a night?
Stay out of trouble.
It was, yeah, that
Read
was.
books. Light a fire. Start a fire in your fireplace.
I recently started reading again.
I have so many book recommendations for you. They're non-political.
I bounce back and forth. I just finished reading a biography on Maynard James Keenan for anybody who's big into music. The first half of that book was just an absolute slog, but then it got really, really good. And I have now switched to a book I was given as a gift a while back that I just was procrastinating, but it seems to be somewhat relevant to the political climate these days. It's called A Party of One. And it's not a bad little read. So yeah,
The Silent Patient. If anyone wants, but that's what I discovered. I'm just going to say this: the past year has been like total detox from politics. 95%. There's so much more to life than that. So much more. And that's why I'm going to be sticking at municipal politics from now on.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on for our last.
That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for doing it. This is where I'm going to do a couple of quick little plugs, and then we're gonna. This is the last live breakdown of 2024.
Holy!
I know, right? 80 episodes by the time the episode with Dr. Lisa Young drops on New Year's Eve. 80 episodes in the year, which is probably excessive. So I'm sorry, everybody, for taking up so much of your time. Couple of the quick plugs. We're not going to be increasing the goal on the GoFundMe anytime soon. But if you want to still contribute, then you absolutely can do that at, we made it really, really easy because the GoFundMe links are always a mess. You can do that at savethebreakdownab.ca. Nice and simple. You can also sign up to be, if you want early access to all of our interview episodes going forward. You can also sign up to be one of our patrons at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab, where for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can help us continue to produce the kind of content that we do. We can that's where we get all our funding for the new cameras and the flips and all the things like that. You can also, if you're not into long-term commitments, then you can also send an e-transfer to info@thebreakdownab.ca. We are only going to be ramping this machine up in the new year. Oh, I'm so excited for all of the things that we have planned. It's going to be so good, and we're not going anywhere. Before I end it, I would be remiss if I didn't play this clip one more time for 2024.
How's your BS detector evolved over time?
I tend to.
It never gets old. I don't know how. There's a thing that makes me laugh so much every single time, but it absolutely does. I love that clip so much. Thank you all so much for listening. If you're listening live tonight, I want to say a huge thank you to the chat as well tonight. Somebody threw out some questions. We got to do some answers. That's really, really great. And I'm glad somebody else likes Tool too. So good. A Perfect Circle, Puscifer. So many good. That guy's so creative. It's so awesome. Thank you to everybody. If you're listening to the podcast version, thank you so much for choosing to spend a little bit of time on this bizarre little episode. And if you're watching on the YouTubes, the likes and smashing the subscribings. All good things. We're going to drop one more year in review episode tomorrow night. And then Tuesday night, brand new episode, conversation with Dr. Lisa Young. Again, you just don't want to miss it. It's so good. And that's all I got. So, what a year. Ended in such a wild way. And again, I do not want to seem in any way flippant about how much the support that all of you have demonstrated over the last little while has meant to me, and quite frankly, my family, and everybody who's peripherally involved with the show. It has been a tremendous gift, and I think Cassandra said it very, very well. I think that that is who we are as Albertans. I think that's who we are as Canadians, and it has been so overwhelming to be the recipient of so much generosity and kindness. So, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the holiday season. We will see you in the new year, and in the meantime, keep the conversation going.